Today, we have a special guest with us, Alea Lovely of the Spiritual Shit podcast.
Yes.
We are in the middle of our dating series, and in this series, we are talking all about having empowered dating experiences. So, when we found Alea and listened to her podcast, we discovered that she actually manifested a beautiful, loving relationship, and we're all about that. That's what we want for ourselves and for the homegirl. So Alea is a host of the Spiritual Shit podcast. She has a book on Amazon called Me, Myself, and Why Finding Your Other Half is Impossible Before Finding Yourself. So she'll talk more about that. Alea, welcome to the show.
Yes, welcome.
Hey. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yay.
We're so happy to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we gave a general, brief understanding or overview of who you are, but tell our homegirls, our listeners out there about yourself, your journey, and how you got here.
Awesome. Well, yes, as they said, I have a podcast called Spiritual Shit, and the origination from that is because I'm an intuitive, a medium, and a manifester.
Yes.
What is it called? Just a person that's really good at manifesting or learned how to manifest really well. So from a very young age, I was indoctrinated in the church. Not necessarily anything wrong with that, but there was a lot of limiting beliefs around what we could generate in our lives, and a lot of things that just didn't resonate with me as a kid as far as our freedom and what it is that we could call into our life. And then also being a person of color, being in schools with predominantly white people and things like that. And there were just things that I saw that people had access to that I didn't. And so growing up with a lot of those limitations, I'm a firstborn child. And so you want to acquiesce to what people ask of you and be the prize student and all those good things. But at some point I got to a place where spiritually, mentally, physically, it just didn't resonate with me anymore. And so I participated in a lot of destructive behavior that ultimately helped me get to where I am now. I was in a very toxic marriage, toxic relationship that I entertained for well too long.
Been
to
there.
understand
Yeah.
and learn, haven't we all?
Know what it's like.
Learn more about my worth and learn more about my gifts and learn more about my purpose and what it is that I'm here to do. And it was a very liberating experience getting from underneath that particular relationship that taught me a lot about myself and about my worthiness and a lot about what it is that I did deserve and what it is that I wanted to call into my life. And so I went through a series of ridiculous dating, lots of stories we could share today if we had enough time, and on a journey to figure out who I was and what it is I wanted to call into my life, and essentially also my higher purpose and what that would look like to be able to call in a person and a partner that could be an equal and capable partner to what kind of life I'm drawing in and manifesting for myself. And that would take no ordinary person. So I needed to learn how to stop settling for what I didn't want and stop snacking and wait for the main course. And and it got me to a place where I've been able to not just generate a really amazing relationship and an incredible partner, but come to a place where I understood and knew the worth of what it is I was here to do on this earth, and the space that I'm allowed to take up and to have access to things that I didn't know I could have in my wildest dreams. And really blew open a door through a lot of healing from what our ancestors have been told, what we've gone through, what our blood line carries, and found ways to transcend that.
Wow.
Girl.
Wow. You really hit a soft spot when you said that you were in the toxic relationship for way too long, because that is unfortunately the story of a lot of us, for a lot of us, but the liberation once you gain self-awareness and you grow is beautiful. And you mentioned that you needed to do some work in order to stop snacking and find this, or allow this unordinary person to find you. So what does that look like? What did that work look like? What was the process?
What's the framework? We actually want the framework.
Okay. Well, first I'll start with a story to get to the process of the framework. So I had gone through, like I said, this toxic relationship. And when I released and liberated myself from that, I went through a series of dating that you'll see in the book that you mentioned, where I had a goal of going on 100 dates. And the whole point of going on 100 dates, I don't know why I put that number out there, but I was like, I'm going to go on 100 dates because I never really dated before. I've never really had, like, I married basically the first person that was really interested in me. And I had this idea that I wasn't really deserving of that. So I thought, if I date this many people, I'll have a very well-rounded perspective of what it would look like, about what it is that I want. And I didn't know that in that essentially goal, I was creating a manifestation of continuing to date people that would treat me like shit because it was a means of me being able to continue the process, right? So my intention was that I was going to go out and do all this stuff. And it essentially, I would continue to meet terrible people that would then continue my process of dating. Because if I found anybody I really liked, it would stop that in its tracks. So
Damn.
I thought I owed it to the world, to this book, essentially, that I would continue this process. And I went to Tulum to do some spiritual healing, or whatever people do when they're down there. And this person I was talking to was saying, don't you think that that's kind of counter what it is that you actually want? Don't you really want a relationship? Don't you really want someone in your life? Don't you really want this? And I'm like, yeah, but I was holding this subconscious belief that no one really wanted me. And so this was my way of being able to have my subconscious belief that I was unlovable, and still get out there and be the feminist that I was, and be sexually empowered, and go out there and do the damn thing like I thought I was doing, and didn't realize how much harm it was doing to my spirit, to my soul, and under the guise that I was like, oh, I'm just doing the thing,
Right.
So after that, chewed me up and spit me out, quite literally, because I wasn't doing it from a healthy perspective. I'm not saying if someone is doing a lot of dating that's going to be bad for them, but for me, it wasn't a good state of mind that I was in to be doing that.
Yeah.
I got to this place where I was like, I need to understand why it's been so difficult for me to call in a relationship. Why is it that I continue to call in people that treat me as such, that treat me like I am disposable, that treat me like I am the last option, that like, and I'm like, I'm cute, right? Like,
You are.
nice, I'm fun, like, and I couldn't conceive like why this was so hard. And so I went through a break where I just decided, okay, you know what? I need to take some time. I need to figure myself out. And so, like I mentioned before, I'm an intuitive. I'm actually a medium, and I have a lot of like spiritual gifts. My dad has them, my grandmother has them, or whatever. And so, and we talk about a lot of them on the show. I asked God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call it, can you make this easy for me? Because I can't seem to figure it out.
Right. Help
I'm
me.
doing everything that I can do to try to figure out what it is so I can find love. And I feel like it's something that continues to evade me. My friends have gotten married. My friends have had children. My friends have these really wonderful partnerships. Why is that not for me? I was able to succeed in my business world and finances and other things or whatever, but I couldn't get this connection. So when I went to Bali, I did some spiritual healing. I looked at some of the things in my life that were out of sorts. And I was in asana on a yoga mat, and I was meditating, and this vision came to me. And the vision itself was this moment from when I was 9 years old, where I wanted to be a gymnast so bad. Like, I wanted to be in gymnastics.
Same.
And
My mom ruined it for me.
like my jam, like Shannon Miller, Dominique Motiano. I don't know how old you are.
It's Dominique Dawes.
Dominique Dawes.
Dominique Dawes, queen. It was Dominique Dawes for me.
Yes. And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about, this particular moment that just came to me about when my parents couldn't afford for me to continue gymnastics. Mind
Mm.
you, it was $25 per season at the YMCA. This was
Mm.
no serious gymnastics. This
Right.
wasn't Olympic. Like,
Little
that's
something,
the
something.
beginning. Okay. Just a little flips and somersaults here and there. And so I remember that every time it came up for season, like to pay for the season, this $25, that I would go to my parents and say, okay, do you have the money for class or whatever? And I could feel empathically that this would hurt them so much
Mm,
when I would ask for this money because they didn't have it. Like we were just dirt poor when I was growing up.
yeah.
Mm.
So I remember that feeling every time going to them and having to ask them for that. And I associated that with when I ask people for things, it hurts them. When I
Mm,
ask people for things, it's a burden. And when I ask people for things, it's not good. So I learned not to ask for things. And then to make it matters worse, my dad did a parenting fail where I got a C in a class or something like that or whatever. And he was like, oh, well, your studies are failing. So we're going to, you have to quit gymnastics. And I instantly knew that's not why.
Mhm.
right.
You can't afford it. And you're making it my fault that I
Yeah.
can't have that. So let me make sure that I don't have to ask anybody for anything,
Mm.
because then no one can take something away from me either. So I will be self-sufficient. I will be so good at everything. I will earn by myself. I will conquer by myself. I will get these things by myself with no help of anyone else, to make sure that no one can take it away from me and no one will be harmed in the process.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there on this yoga mat and all of this is rushing to me, and I instantly understand the importance. And I feel like I have something that I call spirit guides. I have these people that talk to me in my ear.
Mhm.
And this is why you're having trouble attracting a partner, because
Mm,
there is no space for anyone to contribute anything in your life.
Mhm.
You take care of everything.
wow.
So how is there any space for anyone to come in to offer anything to you? Like this is what makes you invisible.
Mm.
So
Wow.
I called myself very often invisible. Why can't they see me? It's because I'm fat. It's because I'm black. It's because I'm this. It's because I'm that. And it was always something. And I didn't realize that this was actually the thing, that
Mm.
energetically I was putting a signal out that says, there's no space for you here.
Mm.
Mm,
There's no room at the inn. Like, so there's no way for them to be attracted. I was always every guy's best friend. I
mm.
was always the guy, oh man, you're such a catch. You're so this, you're so that. I'm like, do you want me? No.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
catch
I'm
me.
single.
I'm falling. Catch me.
I'm here.
God.
you know? So upon that recognition, I asked for healing there.
Mm.
In that moment, I'm sitting there on the mat and I said, please heal this thing. I want someone to be there. I want someone to come into my life. I want someone to be able to, I understand that this is where I learned this. How can I integrate this belief and heal this wound? And it was almost instantly, when I tell you this, instantly, that I then started to see how men were behaving around me very differently.
Mhm.
And suddenly I was very noticeable, very visible, and in fact, very vulnerable. So I had another healing done by this Reiki healer, a girl named Holly Lauren Sloof. And she, after I had this healing, I had a dream. And in the dream, it was and this is important to the story, I promise. I'm not just taking you on a ride.
We
No,
love
we're
it all.
loving the
We
ride.
love it all.
It's a beautiful ride.
Hands are up. We're strapped in.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Thank you. So I have this dream. And in this dream, I am sitting on a monument of sorts with my sister. We're eating pizza. And there's these 8 black men that are marching, protesting in the street. Mind you, this was February 22nd of 2020. So
Mm.
this is before all the COVID stuff happened and everything. So there's 8 men marching down or whatever, and they pivot and turn towards us and start marching up the stairs.
Mm,
And so I'm like, what are they doing? Whatever. And so the guy who's in front comes to me and says, hey, are you single? And I'm like, what do you want? Why you bother me? Whatever. And he says, come inside. I would like to have this dance with you. Something like that. Very Bridgerton style, right? We're in Jordans and hoodies and like the whole bit. And we go inside this really beautiful saloon room that's like very French looking or something. And we do this very Bridgerton-esque type dance with each other. And I remember, and this sounds stupid, but I remember his hands.
mm.
Like very you know how those dances are very like,
Yeah, like-
he
It's
touches
giving
the hand,
waltzy.
very,
It's giving.
Yeah.
very erotic, but it's not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're doing this dance, and then he invites me into this back room, and he's like, join me in the back room. So we go in this back room, and the back room is red, and I'm like, I know what happens here.
Freaky.
And I have this wound of feeling like men only want me for sex.
A lot is being
all
revealed in the dream.
Like throughout my dating experience and everything, it was like I was so disposable. Like it was like, oh, here, like we can, can we curse on the show?
Of
Girl,
course,
come
let
on.
it out.
Okay. We can fuck her and then get rid of her, this whole kind of thing or whatever. And so I always felt so disposable. So when we go in this back room, I'm already like, I know where this is going. And he says, do you want to have sex? And I was like, see, I knew it. I knew you were this kind of guy, blah, blah, blah. He says, hold on. I said, do you want to have sex or do you want your equal and capable partner?
Ooh.
Turn around.
Now it's on you. Ball's in your court. Okay.
And so I said, I want my equal and capable partner. And he says, then please wait for me. And I wake up. Okay.
I've never had a dream like
I
this.
would woke up and called her and said, he's on his way. Don't fret. My
That's
man
what I
is
did.
on his way.
That is exactly
Patience.
what I did. That is exactly what I did. I called up Holly, the girl who gave me the reading. I said, hey, I had this dream. This is kind of what he looks like. And I put together a couple, like compilation of a couple people. And I said, this is the person. Like, I know he's coming. She's like, great, write it down, whatever. So I made sure that there was receipts. Because he understood the assignment.
Period.
So months go by and all the George Floyd stuff happens. Protests in the street, everything's going on. I have no idea. I'm not even thinking about this dream. And I get on Bumble because I know the kind of work that I do with energy work and energy healing and that kind of stuff. And I know our community and they don't get therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to get on here, not to date. I'm going to talk to Black men and see how they're doing. So I got on Bumble and I matched with David. And it's funny, in his profile, it said something casual. And I was like, thinking like, oh, I'll just swipe past him or whatever.
Yeah,
but
that can be a
I found out
deterrent.
later that meant like coffee to him.
Anyway,
So I met up with him and it was so visceral. It was the weirdest feeling of like seeing this person in the dream or a likeness of this person and then recognizing them even down to the hands. Like he shook my hand and I was like, oh, like I got chills now thinking about it. Like the whole thing, just felt the whole thing rush through my body and go, oh my God, this is the guy. This is him. This is the one who told me to wait for him. So I didn't want to creep him out with the crazy of the first date, I don't want to tell him that. But
inside I knew I was his wife.
I was like, this is it. So we talk for 4 hours, then we talk for 4 more hours, and then we go on a date the next day, and it's as if we are been together our like lifetimes. And then the 3rd day, he asked me to be his girlfriend. The 10th day, he tells me he loves me. The 60th day, we get pregnant with my child, my beautiful, beautiful child.
Yes.
There's a story with that too, but we'll get to that. Anyway, all that to say, this manifestation that was taking place, like this person, like I had these signs early about who this person was and what it looked like, but I had to get to this place where I was willing to open up and make space for who this person was and when it was. And then also understanding that timing was a big part of it. I think a lot of times we get really caught up in timing and we think, okay, it's got to happen by this time.
Yes.
I can't have kids by this time or this is going to happen or whatever. And assume that then it means it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But like, had it not happened in this particular time period, he wouldn't have been available before then. He had just gotten out of a very long marriage. So like the timing of it was so like, I mean, within months, I have 2 beautiful stepchildren now, like, just the whole thing. So like, if I didn't orchestrate these number of events, maybe it would have happened a little bit later, but I kept having in my head that it wasn't going to happen at all because it wasn't happening right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so when I got to a space of, once I did all that healing and I knew, and I had something in my heart that said, he's on his way. Like, just wait.
Yeah.
Stop having your expectations about what you think it's going to be and when you think it's going to be and all your fears about what it's not going to be, and just accept what's right now. Be present with what's right now. And as soon as I let that go, it happened so fast. Girl, I was in my apartment, had a brand new apartment, right? And I was like, you know what? Single in the city, COVID style, quarantine by myself. I was like, I'm just going to spend all my money at Home Goods and I'm going to make this place look really sweet. Like I had this really tiny, cute apartment, penthouse apartment in Kansas City, which is super cheap. And I was so excited. Like, okay, this is my single quarantine time. I'm just going to focus on me. I'm not going to be bothered with nobody. 2 months later.
Pregnant.
Booed up.
Pregnant.
Booed up.
Not pregnant yet. But
Oh,
booed
okay.
up.
Booed up. Okay.
shows up, and I was like, well, now we have to find a place to live.
Period. So you know what? You mentioned so many things there, Leah. There are a multitude of things. You know, your
That's the
vulnerability,
short version.
girl. We could have went for the long. It didn't even matter
I
here.
was strapped up on the ride. Like, yes, I love this
I
ride.
know. I personally love when you discussed releasing that like myth of time, because
Mm.
as women, young adult women, we're not that young. We're in our
Adult
30s,
women.
adult women, right? Creeping up, the further and further you creep up into the 30s, nearing the 40s, it's like, okay, what the hell is going on? Because we lay out a timeline for ourselves, and when it's not happening, it becomes so stressful, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I realize, and the more I speak with other women who are finding their people and on the way to find their person, we really have to release, because we are not in control. We really are not in control of when these motherfuckers gonna show up.
Yeah.
Not to the degree of like we can manifest them and bring them in, but we have to release the idea of time, because really time is not even a thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even a thing. My
And
God.
I've been a victim of the feeling like running out of time, and it really
Oh,
puts
yeah.
you
Mhm.
in a scarcity mindset, and it causes
Yeah.
you to settle. Like, it makes you feel like you have to take whatever's being presented. It makes you feel like you can't leave situations that you know aren't the best for you.
Mhm.
It makes you feel like you said it'll never happen, and it causes this like burden. It's like a weight is on you, and you're looking at everybody like, are you the one? Or you're trying to make every situation the one, and it's like, now,
Well,
queen.
think about it like this. You're 100% right. Like, think about it like when you go on a date, right? You know how it feels when there is a guy there, woman there, whoever, who just wants you for sex. You know that energy, right? And you're like, this ain't it. You know,
Right.
Period. Mhm.
Yeah.
like
Period.
feeling like, ugh, I don't like that energy. It's very similar when we are looking at someone to be our all. And when we show up to a date with those expectations and we're like, okay, are you the one? Are you going to be the one that gives me a baby? Are you going to be the one that does this? Are you going to make me happy? Are you going to make me secure? Are you going to pay my bills? That energy is very similar. And like the other side can suss it out like it's nothing. Like,
You really flipped it on its head there.
Because we love to put it all on the men when we be showing up with our shit too. Like, oh my God,
He's
please.
the one.
And you know, it's like a feeling also of like, choose me. Like, you want to be chosen. And that's what we
Yeah.
find our value in, and like being chosen. He put a ring on me. I have a
Yeah.
ring. I have been chosen.
Yeah.
And it's
right,
just
validation.
yeah, it's an energy that's very unhealthy, and it causes us so much turmoil, and I hate that for us.
I too hate
I
it for
hate that
us.
for us. And so I like what you said about the work that you were doing for yourself, because it's like everything comes automatically once you really focus in on yourself, and it's not like shutting yourself off, whereas I'm an independent woman who don't need no man.
Mhm.
But
Right. Well, you're 100% right with that. Go ahead. I want
Yeah.
to say something about that.
yeah,
same.
go ahead.
So very much in our protection of ourselves. When we don't make ourselves open, we don't make ourselves vulnerable. So it's a protection mechanism when we're like, I don't need no man, I don't need this. It's that energy of like, again, I'm not going to make space for you. It's to protect ourselves from the possible disappointment that's coming. It's our own belief that we think that we're not worthy of this thing. So if I can just beat them to the punch, I don't need nobody, then I can protect myself from the possibility of actually failing an expectation or desire that I want to create.
Period.
And so because of that, if for instance, so what happened on me and David's date, and I will never forget this, he was from the beginning, anybody who's been on a date, he said, we got into like a really deep discussion, and he was like, well, I just got out of, a long relationship, and I'm not like really looking for anything serious right now. And I was like, let me stop you right there.
You're right.
And this is what I said. This is probably not verbatim, but it's pretty close. I said, let me stop you right here. I'm here for this conversation. I'm here to hang out. If this is the only time I ever see you, wonderful. If we get married and have many children, great. I don't care. Like, because what's meant for me won't miss me. So you don't need to.
It'll never pass. It'll never pass.
It was like a switch. It shifted. Like he wasn't reserved anymore. He was very open. There was all this openness. And I was just like kind of carefree. And when it came down to it, like 3 days later, he's like, let me lock it down. Because she's not trying to pressure me. She's not trying to put me. He said that there was it's really sweet. He said there was I'm going to mess it up. There's an unlikely amount of characteristics that you had all together. It would be so unlikely for me to find someone who had all of those things. So I didn't need to keep looking. And like that sense of giving him time and giving him a place to be able to make that decision with no pressure made it easier for
When
him
you know,
to
you
decide
know.
that.
When you
When
know, you
you know.
know.
I know. I don't want to have to coerce anybody or feel like, do you see what I have?
Yeah, my worth, my value. So, two things. When this fucking amazing love affair unfolded in 3 days, what the heck were you thinking? What were your friends, your family, the people who are around you thinking when you're like, actually, we had a Bridgerton dance in my dream. I know this is him. Hands are familiar. We are actually in love. How does that, like,
Yeah, was that your typical speed of things? Are you quickly like a dive in
No.
type of person?
so like you also, so if you're not a dive in, you also had to release that part and be like, I'm really going with this thing.
Well, I feel very much so that the reason why it happened so fast like that, and I was so comfortable with it, is because I had done so much spiritual work on
Mm.
myself at that point. So like everybody kind of already knows that I was on this journey. I have this podcast, like I was doing all that kind of stuff. And so it wasn't unlike me to talk about like a weird dream that I had that come true, because that's been happening since I was a kid.
Mm.
And so when I was talking to my sister about it, she was like, "You had a dream about it? Okay." And
It's
obviously they're
happening.
being very like cautious, and like, like even my brother-in-law, he was like, "Well, let me see." And, my mom was just elated from the beginning because she just trusts me and she likes a good love story anyway. And my dad on the other hand was not on board.
Yeah.
Like not at all on board. Even when we announced that we were pregnant, he was his I will never forget his very, yeah, it makes me upset, like how he responded, because he asked me if I was joking. So he was not on board, but
Mm-mm.
now he's on board. He really loves David, so it's great. But
Welcome. Welcome on board,
yeah,
Father.
Welcome. I've been here. Get in. Get in. Sit down. Don't touch nothing.
Yeah.
but don't touch
Shit.
him.
Just get
um,
in.
it was just, honestly, it was this coming of all this healing gave me this perspective where I didn't need anybody else's input to know that it was right.
Mm.
And so when me and David came to that conclusion, it would just, like when you start learning how to listen to your intuition,
Mm-hmm.
like there's nothing clear. And
Mm-hmm.
so to dive in, for instance, he told me he loved me on day 10, and I told him I couldn't tell him that because I was like, Leo, this is way too fast, and whatever. And I went into the bathroom and I cried. And I cried because the all the things that he told me, and how many times I've asked the universe, God, please make it easy.
Mm.
Make it so painfully clear that the person that I'm supposed to be with will be X. And with everybody else, it was so clear that it wasn't them. They made it very clear. Me and my mom and my sisters have this funny phrase where we say, wish them into the cornfield. If this is not the person, wish them into the cornfield. If you've ever seen Children of the Damned or one of those movies.
Mm.
So we would say that. So every time I would have this, like a situation where I was dating, that person would be outed so quick. And it was only because the marriage that I had, I pursued the hell out of that guy. And I mean, it made it easier for him. He was just like, cool. Like,
Okay.
I'll just take
Yeah.
it. He ended up being this narcissist. Great for him. So all that to say, like, God, universe, whoever was really watching out for me, because they were like, nope, kick them out. And it had nothing to do with my worthiness. It was, what did I ask for? I asked for it to be easy.
Mm.
So when David did come and he was giving me all the things or whatever, I was so scared because I was like, I've never ever seen it operate like this. Is this too good to be true? And my heart knew that it was right, but my ego was so scared of being hurt and being vulnerable again. So anyway, I went into the bathroom and I cried. And I said, what does it take for me to listen to my intuition here and to be open, to be vulnerable? And I walked out of the bathroom and I looked to him, and I knew this is someone I've known for lifetimes. Like, I believe in like past lives and stuff like that. I was like, I know this is, you came to me in a dream to tell me to wait for you.
Mm.
Like,
Shit.
I fucking love you, dude.
Period. I was waiting on it. Please just fucking say it.
Germany.
So I told him, and like, it just, it was so, it felt so right. And like, I mean, like, we've been together now a year and some change. And like, this is my person. Like,
Period.
it's so wonderful to listen to those things. And obviously, like, it's not perfect. It's like, his birthday is a day after mine.
Oh wow.
And like, we're both cancers. Like, I never get sick of him. We always like we go on trips together, and I'm like, I don't get tired of being around him. Like I used to get tired of my ex and be like, oh, I just need some space.
Oh my
I
God.
don't want any space. Like I just want to hang out with him all the time. But that's how cancers are anyway. But
Yeah.
anyway, all that to say, like we can do as much as we can in the manifestation side. We can do as much as we can on the healing side, but we also have to honor time
Mm-hmm.
and honor that like when things are supposed to happen, they're going to happen. If we can live if I knew that I was going to meet the person that I was going to be with for the rest of my life, like at this particular time, I wouldn't have been sweating it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd be like, cool, let's party. Let's just hang out. Let's do whatever I
Yeah.
need to do and have a good time.
And fuck
Instead of
everybody else. That's what I would have said.
Literally or
just like
No, figuratively.
No,
Fuck them all.
no.
Not literally getting in bed with the
just
motherfuckers.
kidding, just
Fuck
kidding.
them. I would have been like,
Just,
get the fuck
and
out
it
of
would
here.
have been chill, Like, and I think that that's what happened when I had that moment and I had that dream. I was like, bet. All right. Like, I'm not looking for anybody to notice me. In fact, what happened was I went to, I was on my way from Bali to France. I had a job to shoot there. And I'm a photographer also. And so when I was on my way there were these two very attractive men. One was Greek and this other guy was like this black man from London, with British accent.
Oh, I
And
love them
just
type.
gorgeous, okay? And they're coming up to me and they're like, here's my number and you're an angel and I met you, blah, I saw you
Period.
in another life and all this stuff. And I'm going, I've never in my life had anybody walk up to me that wasn't like, yo, baby, and like the normal like catcalling kind of thing. And they were like legit interested. So one of them took me on this incredible date at Cost, this like insane restaurant where celebrities go in Paris. And he's like, I think you could be the mother of my children. And I think blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It was comical to me because I'd never heard anybody say that to me. I was like, really? But I had opened up that energy. Like now there was space. Now there was openness. I've healed and I'm now like, here are the signals. Can I let someone in? But I believe also it was kind of like the universe, not testing me, but being in the space of saying like, okay, do you want the hors d'oeuvre or do you want your dinner?
Dinner. I'll take dinner. Dinner
Holding
for
on.
one.
No eating.
Dinner.
I'll be waiting. You know what? Were you about to say something?
Go ahead.
Because I'm just loving
This has just been so
conversation.
expansive for me, like this conversation.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Same.
It's been so expansive.
Same. So I have a question, Alea. We've been talking about manifesting the love that you have currently. In the process of getting to this person, right, and doing the healing work, did you ever sit down? What does that part actually look like? Were you writing him out? Although you seen him, did you already do some we be writing stuff down, like write it down, make it plain. Shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
You did?
So, okay. Yes. So here we go. So first of all, me and Sharon have this course called Manifest Them.
Yes.
So it's called manifestthem.com. No plug.
Mm-hmm.
Where we talk about what it looks like to write, not to write, but to get somewhat specific about what it is that you want. And the reason why I say somewhat specific is because we tend to get very specific about details, but we don't know why. And so, for instance, when we sit down and write down what it is that we want out of a person, to get specific about details about what you want to feel with that person, but not necessarily to get super hung up on the details about what they are. Because, for instance, I want a guy who makes 6 figures, and I want a guy who drives this car, and I want a guy who blah, blah, blah. Okay, why do you want a guy who has 6 figures?
Stability.
To feel safe.
Right, yeah.
Stability, security, right? I resolved within myself that I would be my own security.
Come on.
So that was never something that I asked for, because I was like, I want to make my own money.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be the rich man.
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself why you're asking for those things. I want a guy who's 6'6" or whatever. Why?
Makes you feel
Because I
safe.
want to feel small.
Right.
I want to feel safe. I want to feel, whatever that is. Then sometimes you have to do a little further digging, because sometimes we're asking for those things out of our wombs. If I don't feel stable and I don't feel safe, it's because I don't feel like I have the capacity to make this for myself. If I don't feel good about my body, I want someone to have a very much larger body so I can feel better about myself. Things like that. And I remember me being like, I loved basketball players, man. Like somebody who was over 6'5".
I definitely unsaid that.
My dad is 6'4". My uncle's 6'6". I got an uncle who's almost 7 foot. Like we have tall people around our family. I'm 5'5". Like it's just an excess of height I don't need. It's unfair to people who are taller. They should have, that. So I'm sitting here thinking about like that as because I have issues with my own body,
Mm.
having these requirements about what I perceive I want in someone so I can feel better about myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to kind of audit those beliefs about what you're getting specific about. Now, when I rewrote my list, I said, okay, what do I want to feel?
Yeah.
I want to feel safe. What does safety mean for me? I want someone then who's loyal. I want someone who's dedicated. I want someone who's honest. I want someone who's authentic. I want someone who is playful. Like
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel happy. I want to laugh. I want someone who's funny. Like David is hilarious, like
Please
fucking
laugh.
hilarious. I think I cry laughing at least a couple times a week. Like
Love a good
cry,
laughter.
legit cry. Um, and it's someone who's easy to be around, someone who's joyful, someone who's positive, someone who's I'm a very like deep thinker, and I love philosophy and topics that are really complex. He's very cerebral and compliments me in that
Mm.
way, and to me that's so much more important than money or physique or clothes or something like that.
Yes.
And so those are ways in which I mean, like I wanted someone who's a good dad. Like that's the first thing I saw in him. He's so good with his kids, and I knew that, like, man, he might be a better dad than I am a mom, and that was super attractive, like to
Yeah.
me to know that I wouldn't be the only one. She'd
Yeah.
have both parents. So a good marker of this is that she reaches for both of us.
Mm.
And so, like, how like when you see that, like, oh, come to mommy, because like daddy's like, I don't know what to do with the kid, like none of that. Like in fact, he'll be like, here, give her to me. Here,
Oh.
I'll calm it down,
Yes,
kind of thing.
yes. It's
Take your
key.
child.
What I asked for. I sat down and wrote that down, and I said, okay, this is what I want to feel like with the person. Like I want to feel these things, and making sure that the things I was asking for wasn't out of an insecurity of mine.
Yes, I love that.
I've definitely written down a list that said like have money and make money, and then when you get it, it's like you have money and you're spending money, but you're mad fucking annoying. Like
Or you're disloyal
you're
and
disloyal, you're
dishonest.
dishonest. We're not having fun together. Like,
Yeah.
and really, like what you said, how someone makes you feel is very important because that is the energy that you're operating in on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And when you're with someone, the way you feel is so important. Like I was talking to Germany and I said like hanging out with her is easy. Like when I'm hanging out with her, I'm excited to hang out with her. We have a good time. It doesn't feel like a burden, and that's how you should be feeling in all of your relationships. So you're just hanging out. Sometimes, a lot of the times, we find ourselves hanging out with these men for companionship, and then we're feeling sick inside. Like you don't feel safe. You don't feel like you're having a good time. You just feel like there's someone feeling a void.
Yeah.
Right.
You always got to tap in with your core desire feelings. I know that after I was in a long-term relationship, child did a bid. It was long. After I got out, we started doing work around our core desired feelings and like what it is that we truly want to feel in a relationship, and not just stand with a person because of convenience or, just being naturally loyal and just wanting to ride it out, the whole ride or die mentality. It's like, what do I really want to feel? I want to be adored by my partner. I want to feel safe and secure. I want stability. There's just I need it to be fun and all these feelings that you want to feel deep down inside that really have nothing to do with physicality. And I think back to the list that I wrote out, right? Or my core desire feelings, what I wanted my partner to have. That was not superficial at all, but like I want them to be like a good conversationalist. I want them to speak well of me when I'm around and when I'm not around. I want them to adore me. Just all of these things. And it had nothing to do with how they looked, what money they made, none of that. It was all about myself and what I wanted them to make, how I wanted them to make me feel. And my current partner has all of those things. And he's not my typical type. I don't even have a type, honestly. I'll be completely honest. All the niggas I dated look different. Okay? There's no type. There's no type. But
Same.
if I had to point him out in a crowd before I knew he was going to be my person, I wouldn't have been like, that's him. I'm going to walk over and get him. Yeah. But he brought so much to my table, like to our table. And it's just such a dynamic relationship. And I think I know it's because my core desire feelings were clear, and I had dated a crazy nigga in the past in between coming to did this one. And I'm like, okay, hold on. He had to be an
That
expander.
helps make it crystal
That's
clear.
what it was. He was an expander. It's like, It's just like, that's
it's
not,
an expander.
yes. I'm like,
You
okay,
recognize what you want, what you don't want from that person beforehand.
exactly. And he showed me, because it was the relationship between the one that I'm in now and the 10-year relationship ending. It was that little kind of pivotal space of like, okay, what is it like to
It's
date?
something new.
Yeah,
and
like this is something I haven't been in the past. And he showed me a lot of love, a lot of adoration, a lot of attention, but it just wasn't what it was supposed to be, right? So it's like I got a chance to feel like, wow, this is what a good relationship feels like. But on the back end, I'm like, this actually is some other stuff that I'm not interested in. So when my current person showed up, it was like, oh, he just showed me what was possible. Because at the time, I didn't even know it was possible. I'm like,
Yeah.
what y'all be doing? What niggas be doing again?
Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I'm like, they be taking us out.
Yeah.
Oh, they be calling us. It's like, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it.
Yeah.
So,
But,
you know,
those people are huge expanders for you. And like, I
yes.
feel very thankful to my exes in whatever capacity that they served because they helped me find David. I want to, like, something you said sparked a story in me, where you talked about that they speak well of me when I'm not around.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was actually something I wrote down because my previous partner, my previous husband, I'm a photographer, and so when I would go on jobs and shoot on jobs, and sometimes he would shoot with me, he was very jealous when people would speak really well of me. And like, narcissists are like, well, I need to be the center of attention or
Yeah.
whatever. So one time I was at this wedding where this girl came up to him, and I was next to him when she said it, but she was like, "Oh my God, you're married to Aaliyah. Aaliyah's amazing. She's wonderful." Da, 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 da. And he was so irritated by that, and he said, "She's lucky to be married to me too." Now, I thought that what a weird response, because
Right.
I'm like, if someone came up to me, I'd be like, "Oh my God, yeah, right, like he's amazing." But and it was always like that. I always paid for it when someone would speak really well of me, and I had to diminish myself around him so he wouldn't be jealous. So when I went to a wedding to shoot with David, this woman comes up to him, and it was almost an identical scenario. Like, she's like, "Oh my God, Alea's amazing. She's this, she's that," or whatever. And immediately my wound goes, like, oh no, like it's gonna really bother him.
Right.
And she's talking about how amazing I am, and he goes, "I know, right? I'm trying to be cool about it."
Aww.
And he's like, "I'm just, yeah, you're totally right." Like, and I heard him say that, and I could have cried on the spot.
Period.
Because it was such a dynamically different experience. And if I hadn't had what I didn't want, I wouldn't have known what to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
That is so true. Like,
tears of joy.
I know, because sometimes when we are in these relationships that are meant to expand us, and they don't work out, it feels like I've wasted my time.
Yeah.
I've wasted my time. This didn't work out. And then again comes that scarcity mindset, the feeling of like we're running out of time, all of those things playing together, that we don't realize that this is an eye opener. This is helping you curate what you really want, what you don't want, like learn from it, move on. You pass the test, and now look. Now when someone presents themselves and they're not a fit, you can recognize them more quickly. Or if it's the opposite, they are a fit, you're like, wow. And that's the part that kind of scares me, because I feel like I'm kind of I can be a little skeptical. Like, I'm working on being more
optimistic.
No, not yeah, I guess so, but like more open, emotionally available, I guess you can say, and vulnerable, because that is
she wants to be taken care of. She does. She really does. She desires for her man to come in, take care of her, make her feel safe.
Yeah, period. Take care of her.
We're ready to take off the cloak of independence.
But what was I saying? I done forgot.
You're working on being more emotionally available.
I know, but I forgot why I was saying that.
You're scared because what?
That's what I was saying. I'm a little nervous that when something amazing presents itself, I might be so skeptical. Like, are you a wolf in sheep's clothing? Because sometimes that's how it starts off. Like, people put on this facade, and you're like, and then they take off their costume, and you're like, I knew you were in there. I knew you were a clown.
Ooh, let's talk about what?
Let's talk about intuition then, because a lot of times we make those decisions out of scarcity because we're in fear and we're afraid of being hurt. So we're vulnerable to believe that someone could love us in a way that we actually wanted to be loved if we'd never seen that before. So there's a layer that we have to take off first. Recognize that. I remember one time talking to my spirit guides, and being in this space of feeling like every person that I like, or every person that I'm da da da, they don't like me back or whatever. And the voice that's in my head saying, well, if they liked you, you don't really like people that are, who like you back. You
Mm.
want the person you have to win over.
Mm.
And like, I was more attracted to people who are emotionally unavailable, because if I could win them over, then that meant I was worthy of love. So I was fighting my own battle with my father, actually, in a lot
Mm.
of these relationships that were trying to play out. That I was trying to earn their attention and earn their love, earn them saying, okay, you're worthy of space here, in order for me to feel like that I'm connected to them. So if there were to be someone like David who's generously giving me their love constantly, like he tells me, I love you, baby, like 100 times a day.
I
I
love
love it.
that type.
He reaffirms
Tell
me,
me.
reassures me, tell baby you look cute, baby you look this, whatever. Even at the worst of myself, when I felt like, literally, the reason my haircut is like this is because I'm going through postpartum hair loss real bad, girl. It's falling out, all kinds of stuff. Like, you know how precious edges are.
Yes.
And very much feeling like my body doesn't feel the same, all those things. If I had had someone who was like that beforehand, before I adjusted my palate, it would have been too sugary for me. And I would have been like, oh, this is not, this, I don't know, this tastes like cotton candy. It's gross. And so I wouldn't have wanted to be in a club that would have me as a member, because that was my own self-punishment. Me feeling like I deserve this or whatever on some subconscious level, even if, like you're saying, you want to be taken care of. Don't we all? But if we didn't feel like we deserved that care, then we would continue to try to attract people that would treat us as such, and then trying to win them over as a bid for us saying that we were worthy of what it is that they're trying to give us. If someone were to offer you that with no conditions, would you accept it? Or would you feel like this was too good to be true? There must be something wrong with you. There must be that you would actually like me. Like, then something must be really wrong with you, because like, I'm not worthy of all that. You must want something. You know what I mean? We don't say that out loud, but that's essentially what our subconscious is operating in, is this safe space of lack, that we have to win it in order to feel deserving of what someone is giving to us. Otherwise, like, what would be the reason? Why would we deserve someone to be that kind to us?
Yeah.
Why would we deserve someone to be that loving to us? I know that, like, until I did that work for myself, David came in and he's like, the text messages that are this long, responding super fast, and like, no games, none of the stuff that I normally had to do. And I'm like, why am I trying to resist this?
Yeah.
Like all of the behaviors and all the shit I went through and all the trauma and all the games. And then this person who's giving me everything I've asked for. I said, you know what? Even if this is too good to be true, I've given people who haven't given me half of this more attention.
Yeah.
So give it.
So here we go. Let me just open up, because if it is too good to be true, let me learn my lesson.
Yeah.
It didn't mean that I wasn't worthy, but let me just soak this in. This is nice.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, because I didn't have anything to lose, and because I wasn't in a place where I had any expectations, because I said, you know what, at the end of the day, if this isn't the person, let me enjoy myself being loved.
Period.
Does that mean that there's something, like, if it's not the one, like, why does that end up being the marker for someone treating you well for a little while?
Right.
I'm not saying take advantage of someone if you're not interested in them. What I'm saying is that we have this kind of idea that it's like this socially ingrained mentality that limits us from being able to experience love in all its many facets.
Yeah.
Love can come through friendship. We talked about your friendship with Germany, like, that's an expansive friendship. We don't put enough emphasis on our girlfriend relationships and how important those are.
Girl.
I had the most girl gang ever when I lived in Bali for a few months. And it was so enriching. I was like, I don't need no fucking man. Not in the heated place. But I was like, I'm having so much fun with my girls. Like, there was no feeling like there was anything missing, because I had such an enriching experience with those people. So being able to experience, if someone is coming to you and you're attracted to them and you're open to it, I'm not saying, like, go with some dude that you're like not into, but if that's the case and you have this, be open. Let yourself be open to it, because even if it's not the person that's the one, they can be a stepping stone towards it. You get to curate, like you said earlier, deeper, further what it is. The next thing I want to confront is time. So our fears around, like, whether or not they're the one, and that kind of ingrained thing I believe comes from the time issue.
Yeah.
So if we're afraid that it's the time issue, if it's not the one, we spent 4 months with this person, finds out it's not the one, oh my God, I wasted my time. No, like, you learn more about yourself. You had a great ass time for at least 3 months of it.
Right.
And you learned something about yourself, right? But I think a lot of us, those of us who do want families, not everybody wants families, and that's okay. But those of us who have these timelines of when we thought we would get married or when we thought we'd have this or whatever, if we open ourselves up from that. Now, I think that the family component is an important one, and we do mention this, especially for those who identify as women or those who have children or those who menstruate, whatever. All open all those doors for people who want families and feel that time, like that body clock ticking. I'll say this, whether or not you're supposed to create a life from a loving relationship is a very interesting concept of the way we think of our humanity. And for a lot of people, we think of it as a right. It's a right to have a child or whatever. I have recently adopted the idea that when a soul wants to come in, a soul's going to come in. And when a soul decides they want two people and parents or whatever, like I have some friends who've, made children with people that they were with for a day, or like with, for a marriage that didn't work out or whatever. That soul was supposed to come in during that time. That's my belief.
Yeah.
And so, whatever capacity that looks like, I have friends who struggle with infertility for years and years and years and years. And finally, when they got to a space where they were like, okay, we're not going to have any kids. Either they ended up having a life that they actually really wanted without the pressure of all those things, or they gave up the expectation and then boom, there it happened.
The soul came in. The soul wiggled right up in there.
But we sometimes allow society as this, the mother ideal or whatever to dictate our youth, our worthiness, our ability to have value if we can have children or not. And that is not our only purpose to serve. Just because we have a uterus doesn't mean we need to use it.
And that's on period.
If that is something that's your fear, like I'm afraid I'm not going to have a family, I'm afraid I'm not going to have kids, I understand that and I validate that. I know that's a hard one to reconcile. If it gives you any hope, I'm 37. I just had my first child, my first and only. And my doctors have told me most of my life I wouldn't be able to have kids.
Wow.
So I have fibroids, endometriosis, PCOS, the whole gamut. I almost died on the table when I had the baby. It was a very traumatic experience. But she was here and she came in quick. And she was meant to be here because she chose us as parents, and everything happened super fast. So you just don't know how fast things can change.
Yeah.
Right? You just don't know what's ahead of you or what's meant for you. And if you can allow yourself to stop living your life based on scarcity and fear, you can just live your damn life.
And that's it.
Time, because I love my baby. She's 5 months old. She's amazing. And the way that she came into the world, I'll tell you that story later if we have time, was so amazing. But I remember after getting pregnant and us having this home life and getting our home together or whatever, being like, oh man, I can't just up and travel when I feel like it now.
Right.
Oh man, I can't just up and do this anymore. Oh man, once I'm responsible for this, this is the deal. This is life forever.
Can't get rid of it.
Nope. And don't want to, but it's an adjustment. It's a huge change. And so recognizing that and honoring that by being able to be present with my life currently and not letting my fears of the future take away from the wonderful life I could be creating now.
Yes. That's important.
We've been talking about that.
We have. Just being present, living in the moment, understanding that time is really not a thing, that we just have to live here, embrace what's going on, express gratitude and reverence for these times, because we get so wrapped up living in the present, thinking about the not living in the present, child, be here. Yeah. We be living in the future.
Yeah.
We be living in the future that we totally say, fuck this experience. We totally negate the current experience. And really the current experience is what we prayed, what we manifested, what we wished, what we hoped we would be. It just robs us of our joy.
It does.
How many times have you looked back in your life and been like, man, I prayed for this.
Yeah.
I prayed for where I am right now.
Yeah. We prayed to be sitting on this floor.
We take it for granted.
And we don't do it enough. We don't do it enough, honestly. Because every day it's okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. This is what we need to be working towards. And instead of being wow, I think there's space for it all, right?